In 1975, in a small Pennsylvania town where doors were left unlocked and neighbors knew each other by name, an 8-year-old girl set out for Sunday school and vanished before she ever reached the church. Her disappearance shattered the sense of safety for an entire community, and for nearly 50 years, no one knew what happened. But now, decades later, a shocking confession has finally revealed the truth, and it came from one of the town's most trusted men. This is the case of Gretchen Harrington, a story of innocence lost, secrets buried, and justice delayed for almost half a century. Subscribe now so you don't miss the details of how this cold case was finally solved. Gretchen Harrington was born on June 13, 1967, in Pennsylvania, the youngest of 3 daughters in a close, church-centered family. Shortly after her birth, the Harringtons relocated to Bumo, a small town where life seemed untouched by danger. Her father took a position as pastor at the local church, quickly becoming a trusted figure in the community. Bumo was the kind of place where doors were left unlocked, neighbors greeted one another by name, and children roamed freely from yard to yard. The streets were lined with old maples, the air often carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass. Parents felt no hesitation letting their children play until the sun dipped below the horizon. For Gretchen, childhood meant long summer days spent exploring wooded trails, riding bikes with her sisters, and joining friends in games that stretched late into the evening. She was bright, curious, and deeply rooted in her faith. Active in her father's church, she regularly participated in Sunday school, where she earned top marks and the admiration of her teachers. In a community defined by trust and safety, Gretchen's life seemed secure. Yet beneath this picture of small-town harmony lay the unthinkable truth that the peace surrounding Bumo would soon be shattered, and the memory of its youngest daughter would linger for decades. On the morning of August 15, 1975, the Harrington home was filled with quiet anticipation. Gretchen's mother and newborn sister were due to return from the hospital, and Gretchen wanted to be there when they arrived. But her father, mindful of her flawless Sunday school attendance, encouraged her to go. Reluctantly, she agreed. She dressed neatly, took her well-worn Bible, and stepped outside. For Gretchen, walking alone to church was unusual. Normally, she went with her sisters. That morning, though, it was just her, following the short route of less than a mile. Sunday school that day was divided between 2 locations, beginning at Trinity Church, then continuing at the Harringtons' own church where her father preached. By late morning, the schedule appeared to be proceeding as planned. But at 11:30 a.m., her father scanned the arriving group and felt a sudden unease. Gretchen was nowhere in sight. He quickly called Trinity Church, speaking with the wife of Reverend David Zanstra. Her words cut through the calm of the day. Gretchen had not been there at all. In that moment, the rhythm of the small-town Sunday broke. A simple walk to church, one she had taken without worry, had dissolved into uncertainty. And in Bumo, where safety was assumed, the first threads of dread began to unravel. When Gretchen failed to arrive at either church, her father acted without hesitation. He got into his car, driving quickly between Trinity Church and his own, scanning sidewalks and side streets for any sign of his daughter. Phone calls followed. Friends' parents, Sunday school classmates, anyone who might have seen her that morning. The answer was the same each time. No one had. Realizing the situation was far from a simple delay,
the family contacted police. News of Gretchen's disappearance traveled fast in Bumo. Within hours, hundreds of residents joined officers in the search. They combed through the town, pushing into wooded trails, open fields, and along the edges of the nearby riverbank. The air above thumped with the sound of helicopter blades, its crew sweeping the area from above. Flyers bearing Gretchen's photograph and description appeared in shop windows, on telephone poles, and in church foyers. Still, as the sun set on that first day, not a single lead emerged. The following morning, the search expanded. Volunteers pressed deeper into the forest. Law enforcement revisited every road, and the river's banks were checked again. Yet the results mirrored the day before. Nothing. As days passed without a trace, unease hardened into something heavier. For a town unaccustomed to crime, the absence of answers was more than unsettling. It was the first shadow of a mystery that would haunt them for years. Gretchen's disappearance sent a shockwave through Bumo. In a place where children once moved freely from yard to yard, the unspoken sense of safety dissolved overnight. Parents who had trusted the town's streets now hesitated to let their children out of sight. The change was immediate. Playgrounds sat quieter, bikes stayed in garages, and what had been routine freedoms were replaced with constant supervision. Fear found its way into every household. Rumors began to circulate. Some whispered she had run away, though few believed it. Others suggested she may have drowned in the river, a theory that pushed searchers back to its banks. But the most disturbing thought, one that spread with hushed voices, was abduction. Precautions became part of daily life. One mother, gripped by worry, cut her daughter's hair short, hoping she might be mistaken for a boy. Children no longer walked to school or church alone. Witness accounts trickled in. Several reported seeing a girl who matched Gretchen's description approached by vehicles, a green station wagon in one instance, a white Cadillac in another, near the church that morning. Investigators followed every lead, tracing the owners of similar cars. Each path ended the same way. No connection, no progress.
In Bumo, the fear was constant, the questions unending, and the silence surrounding Gretchen's fate only deepened the town's unease. 4 days after Gretchen vanished, a possible lead emerged. A pair of shorts, similar to ones she often wore, was discovered in Westchester. For a brief moment, hope flickered that this might provide answers. But when her mother examined them, she confirmed they were not Gretchen's. Weeks stretched on, each day without progress deepening the community's despair. The search effort, once filled with hundreds of volunteers, was eventually called off. With no sign of Gretchen in the surrounding area, attention shifted entirely to investigation. Detectives followed every tip, but leads were scarce and most ended quickly. As September passed into October, hope was fading, replaced by the heavy reality that the case might never be solved. Then, on October 14th, more than 2 months after her disappearance, a jogger in a national park about 20 minutes away noticed something unusual in the brush. Upon closer inspection, it became clear: human remains. The body was that of a young child. Nearby clothing had been placed in a neat pile. Gretchen's mother was brought in to view the garments. She recognized them instantly. They were pieces she had sewn herself. Dental records provided final confirmation. The remains were Gretchen's. The coroner determined she had died from multiple blows to the head. With that discovery, the search for a missing child became a homicide investigation. The safe, quiet image of Bumo was gone, replaced by a haunting question: who had taken Gretchen's life, and why? The condition of Gretchen's remains offered little for investigators. Decomposition made it impossible to determine key details, including whether a sexual assault had occurred.
In 1975, DNA analysis was not yet available, leaving detectives without the forensic tools that might have provided answers. The murder reignited fear in Brumo. Residents who had tried to return to normal found old anxieties resurfacing. Every stranger was viewed with suspicion, and every rumor was treated as potential truth.
Investigators pursued each new lead, but none brought them closer to identifying Gretchen's killer. Background checks were conducted on local men with histories of violence, yet no evidence tied them to the crime. As months turned into a year, the trail grew colder. The case, once urgent and all-consuming, stalled. Officially, it remained open, but momentum was gone. Over the decades that followed, it would occasionally be revisited, brief bursts of renewed effort sparked by anniversaries, new witnesses, or technological advances, but without physical evidence to test, even the most promising developments in DNA analysis could not help. For 48 years, the murder of Gretchen Harrington remained unsolved. It existed in the collective memory of Brumo, a story retold in cautious tones, resurfacing in local headlines, always accompanied by the same haunting question: who was responsible? In recent years, Gretchen's case found new life through the work of two Brumo natives, journalists Joanna and Mike. Determined to document the tragedy that had haunted their hometown, they spent years combing through records, interviewing residents, and piecing together the story. Their book, published in 2022, did more than preserve history. It reignited public interest. In the months that followed, a call came to police from a woman with a deeply personal account. She explained that in 1975, she had been abused by David Zanstra, the Sunday school pastor at Trinity Church. According to her, he would enter her room during sleepovers and touch her inappropriately. The pattern she later discovered extended to others, including her friend, Zanstra's own daughter, who revealed it was a frequent occurrence. The woman still possessed her diary from that period. Among its entries was a chilling note. Shortly after Gretchen vanished, a friend had narrowly escaped an abduction attempt by Zanstra. This account, preserved for decades in her own handwriting, became a crucial piece of information. The testimony cast a dark new light on a trusted figure in the community and shifted the focus of the investigation. After decades of unanswered questions, police once again had a suspect. The renewed attention and the disturbing allegations meant that, for the first time in nearly half a century, the possibility of solving Gretchen Harrington's case felt within reach. As detectives revisited the decades-old case files, subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Among them was a telling detail. David Zanstra had always claimed he never saw Gretchen on the morning of August 15th. Yet in earlier interviews, he had described her clothing that day with striking accuracy. Details later confirmed to be correct. Another discovery raised further suspicion. Records showed Sunday school at Trinity Church had started nearly 50 minutes late on the day Gretchen disappeared. That unexplained gap provided more than enough time for an abduction and murder. Witness accounts from 1975 came back into focus. One had reported seeing a green station wagon near the church that morning. Investigators confirmed that Zanstra, at the time, owned a vehicle matching that description. With the new testimony from an abuse survivor and these mounting discrepancies, detectives traced Zanstra to his home in Georgia. He was now 83 years old. When questioned, Zanstra initially denied any role in Gretchen's disappearance, but as investigators confronted him with the abuse allegations and the inconsistencies in his story, his resistance began to crack.
Eventually, he admitted what had happened. He confessed to luring Gretchen into his car under false pretenses, driving her to a remote park and assaulting her. When she resisted, he killed her. Zonstra then concealed her body before returning to lead Sunday school as if nothing had occurred. After 48 years, the truth was finally spoken aloud, closing one of Burmo's most haunting chapters. Following his confession, David Zonstra was taken into custody and extradited to Pennsylvania to face charges for the murder of Gretchen Harrington. For investigators, the arrest brought resolution to a decades-old mystery, but it also opened the door to new questions. Given Zanstra's long career as a pastor, serving in multiple states over several decades, detectives began to suspect he might have other victims. His access to children through church programs and community events meant opportunities for abuse could have been frequent. DNA samples were collected from Zanstra, not for Gretchen's case, which lacked physical evidence, but to compare against databases of other unsolved crimes. One potential connection surfaced: the 1991 disappearance of 4-year-old Amanda Campbell in California. At the time, Zanstra had been working at a church in the area. While no physical evidence has yet tied him to Amanda's disappearance, investigators noted the unsettling similarities between the two cases. The trial for Gretchen's murder has not yet begun. Legal experts caution it could be delayed if Zanstra attempts to retract his confession, a possibility that would force prosecutors to rely on circumstantial evidence and witness testimony gathered nearly half a century later. Meanwhile, authorities continue to investigate Zanstra's past, combing through records, interviewing former parishioners, and reviewing cold cases. For now, the hope is that the arrest not only brings justice for Gretchen, but also uncovers any other crimes still hidden in the shadows. Nearly 50 years after Gretchen Harrington vanished, the truth has finally been spoken aloud. David Zanstra's confession closed one of Burmo's darkest chapters, but it didn't erase the scars. For the people who grew up here, this is not just a solved case, it's a reopened wound. Every street corner, every church pew still carries the shadow of that summer in 1975, the day innocence left, the day trust was broken. And while one question has been answered, others now demand attention. How many more victims might there be? How many towns, far beyond Burmo, carry untold stories connected to this man? Investigators are still digging into old records, into cold case files, into the memories of those who once thought they were safe. The hope is to uncover every hidden crime before time runs out, before witnesses are lost, and before the truth slips away again. The trial for Gretchen's murder has yet to begin. Whether justice will come swiftly or at all remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: this case is no longer frozen in the past. And Gretchen Harrington's name will not be forgotten. Because even the coldest trails can still lead to the truth if someone refuses to stop walking them. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to hear more true crime cases like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.